On this week's Waypoint, there are a ludicrous amount of changes being tested out, and we're going to cover as many as we can. We also have news about the fabled centralized NA servers. What's up guys, and welcome to Waypoint, your weekly League of Legends recap. I'm your host, Kat Andrusco. When Riot said that they were going to be testing out a ton of experimental changes before Season 5, they meant it. In just the first week of testing, we've already seen an insane amount of possible major changes put up on the public test realm. But before you jump on the PBE, with so much to test, Riot are doing something a little different this month. In case you've forgotten, we do have a brand new Summoner's Rift map on the way, and that's kind of a big deal. That needs to be tested on its own to make sure it's 100% polished for release. So for now, Riot are changing things up every few days. On some days, you'll be playing on the new Summoner's Rift map without the preseason changes. On others, you'll be playing on the new Summoner's Rift map with the changes. First up, Riot want more champions to be viable in the jungle, and those champions to have more options. If you look at the strongest competitive junglers at the moment, a big part of their early game strength is tied to ganking. Slower, tankier junglers just aren't in meta, and even if your champion is good at farming or objective control, a ganking jungler will generally just snowball the game. Of course, if you go back to the last time Riot made major changes to the jungle and introduced Feral Flare to let farming junglers really power up, it was nerfed rather quickly after release. It's a fine line, and it's something Riot has struggled to balance. So what are they doing this time? For starters, each jungle camp will give an extra reward if you use Smite on it. That could be anything from counter jungling protection or increased vision, but the goal is to promote jungler on jungler action, whether that's protecting your own camps or invading the enemies. You might be thinking that's going to favor the strong, aggressive, early game junglers that are popular now, and I think you'd be right. However, with the difficulty of the jungle monsters going up as well, things start to balance out. If the jungler monsters have more health, you'll be fighting them longer and they'll do more damage. High sustained farming junglers will be healthier, and damage-focused junglers will be lower on health when they want to play aggressive. Like I said, it's a fine line, and the end goal is for all jungling styles to be effective. Jungle items are getting a major overhaul, as well as an emphasis on options and late-game scaling. Whether you want to tank, farm, invade, or control objectives, there should be items that support your playstyle. If you're playing an early game ganker, you should have the option of going all out and increasing your ganking power, or buying something that helps you clear more reliably. That's just an example, but the point is, Riot doesn't want every aggressive jungler to automatically go for Elder Lizard. On top of that, Riot wants junglers to scale better into the late game, even though they bought jungle items that are usually weaker in terms of team fighting power. Moving out of the jungle and looking at the rest of the map, Riot are looking at major changes across the board. It might not work like this in solo queue, but in competitive play right now, we often see teams trading a dragon for a turret, or vice versa. The gold value of that trade is really similar, so neither team gains an advantage. Riot aims to change that. So for starters, Dragon will grant a permanent buff that increases the power the more dragons your team takes. That's a really interesting change. Team comps that are weak early will have to calculate how many dragons they can give up before they have to start contesting, while teams with strong dragon control early will scale throughout the game and make the decision between Baron and Dragon harder. Plus, it makes flashy dragon steals even more impactful. Sending your AD carry to solo it at 40 minutes might be too big a risk without a good vision. Turrets, on the other hand, already do their job well throughout the game. They provide vision and safety, and taking one takes that away from the enemy team, as well as giving you gold. Instead of changing the reward, Riot want to experiment with changing how teams actually take turrets. They want each ring of turrets to be handled slightly differently, being weaker or stronger in certain areas. That's not all on the objectives front. Baron Nashor is being looked at, as well as the value of objectives early game versus late game. Entirely new forms of objective rewards, like more map utility, are being tossed around as well. The point of changes like these are to give teams different ways of winning the game while making big choices and trade-offs along the way. And that is just the tip of the iceberg. This is going to be an exciting couple of months while we figure out what makes it onto the live servers and what does not. Get hyped for Season 5. NA East Coast players, I've got good news and I've got bad news for you. Last week, Riot announced plans to improve the stability and security of the game with a server migration. But migration was a bit of an unfortunate word to use because naturally, it sounds like a new location, which leaves players asking, so why isn't ping being improved? Well, it is, but not yet. First, we get a more stable and secure connection in November with this migration. In the meantime, Riot is actively working with ISPs across the US and Canada to get more internets.
The internet is not a big truck. The internet is not something that you just dump something on. The internet is not a big truck. The internet is a series of tubes.
There's a more technical explanation, but that's how I read it. After all that, the NA servers will be moved to a brand new, geographically central location. Riot isn't sharing when or where that'll be happening, but just so you guys don't get your hopes up, I personally think 2015 would be a very optimistic timeline. Sorry. Do you know what League of Legends lacks? Explosions! Well, you know, other than Ziggs and Rumble and half of our AD carries. Okay, fine, we have explosions. But we don't have massive explosions inflicted by over 220 armored vehicles from America, Germany, France, and the Soviet Union. If those are the sort of fiery balls of death you're looking for, then I highly encourage you to check out World of Tanks. World of Tanks is a team-based, massively multiplayer online action game dedicated to armored warfare. New players can jump into combat and get going in less than a minute, fighting with players from all over the world in fast-paced, epic battles. Best of all, it's free to play with no barrier to entry. There's absolutely no risk in trying World of Tanks, so head on over to gboffer.com/tanks and check it out today. Following that link and checking out the game is also an awesome way to support us and help us continue to make shows like Waypoint. Once again, to check out World of Tanks and support this content, head on over to gboffer.com/tanks and have a blast. See what I did there? Blast. Tanks. Okay. That does it for this week's episode of Waypoint. For more video game news and content, head on over to gamebreaker.tv. Be sure to check back every week for the latest League of Legends news. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and comment below to help us reach more people. And if you want more League of Legends content, recaps, and updates, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, LOL Nation TV. You can follow me on Twitter @Andrusco. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys at the next Waypoint.